Don't let anyone tell you otherwise. The Kushites' world, their entire history, culture, heritage, traditions are built around their supreme God and their spirituality, which was truly divine. The earliest evidence we have found on Kushite spirituality is at Adam's calendar circle in southern Africa. This circle was built between 75,000 years ago and 160,000 years ago, again in southern Africa. It is a monolith or a megalith structure that is perfectly aligned with the brightest stars in the Orion constellation. Africans, or Alkebalans, as they originally called themselves, erected the megalith Adam's calendar at Mpumalanga, South Africa, over 75,000 years ago to study the Orion star systems and Earth weather patterns. Then came Napata in northern Africa, virtually doing the same by studying the Orion constellations. So the North Africans, or the Kushites, they erected Napata around 10,000 years ago in Nubia, or Kush. And these megalith structures were aligned with the Orion constellation. And then to top it off, the three pyramids at Giza in Egypt was a continuation from Napata, a continuation from Adam's calendar. These pyramids also are aligned with the brightest stars in the Orion constellation. And finally, the Great Sphinx was built about 12,500 years ago. It too is aligned toward the Orion constellation belt. So the Orion constellation is where the Kushite believe their supreme God lived. So let's talk a little bit more about that. So looking beyond Adam's calendar, by about 30,000 BC, the Africans, or the Kushites, had mastered the study of the Orion star systems, and this was in full display at Napata. They named the Sirius star, one of the brightest stars in the skies, a god in the heavens. And this is easily the first reference seen on Earth where God was named to be living in the universe, in the sky, in the heavens. And this is where I believe the Kushites believe that their supreme God revealed himself to them at least between 30,000 and 100,000 years ago. So here you might say the early beginnings of God worship began among the Kushites in Africa. And the Kushites thereafter, about 100,000 years over that span of time, the Africans have started building monuments, or megalith, or monolith, or edifices. It began with Adam's calendar over 70,000 years ago, building these extraordinary structures in favor of the God, in favor of their spirituality. So Adam's calendar over 70,000 years ago, then came Napata, and thereafter came the pyramids of Giza, the pyramids of Napata, or Meroe, among the Kushites. So all these edifices, all these engineered structures were built in favor of the gods, in honor of their supreme God. One of the most common elements of the Adam's calendar megalith, the Napata megalith, the pyramids of Giza and the pyramids of Napata and Meroe, are the stones that they use to build these structures. These stones have very common chemical structures and crystalline structures having to do with calcium, sodium, and other minerals And what's common among these minerals are the electromagnetic nature of all these minerals. And even the pyramids that were built from blocks of concrete were built with certain special type of chemical structures. And it's apparent, at least to me, being someone who has numerous patents in physics and technology, I see where the Kushites were harnessing the ultraviolet rays from the sun, and they were also likely harnessing the magnetic fields from the Earth's core. And all this has to do with, I believe, their religion. This is the way they worship their supreme God in the Orion system, in heaven. So let's jump ahead a little bit from Adam's calendar, Napata, the pyramids at Giza, the Great Sphinx. Let's come back a little south to Nubia, or Kush, or Ethiopia, or Sudan. Now let's talk about Napata. Napata is the culmination of the Kushite religion, which clearly started at Adam's calendar, probably even before that. So Napata was the holy, sacred city of the Kushites and of the Egyptians. Napata was a spiritual city. Napata was a holy city. Napata was renamed Jebel Barkal, we understand, by the Arabs after they invaded, after Christ was born. But Napata has 15 temples that are still there without roofs, with numerous chapels, 3 massive palaces, a necropolis of dozens of beautiful, elegant pyramids not far away. And not far from here, you will find the Abu Simbel temple that they built for the supreme god Amun. They call their god, supreme god Amun, as the Jews call their supreme god Yahweh. So Abu Simbel temple was built for their supreme god called Amun. Of course, Abu Simbel temple was removed from Nubia. I think it now resides in Egypt, of course, modern day Egypt. So Napata was the holy sacred city of the Kushites. Magnificent monuments and edifices, vast temples, steles, obelisks, pyramids, all constructed in honor of their supreme god. And later, they also constructed a city called Meroe, which became the intellectual capital of the Kushite Empire, including Egypt. So Napata was the holy city of the Kushites and the Egyptians. One important point to note among all these other critically important points is that all pharaohs of Kush and all pharaohs of Egypt were crowned at Napata, at the holy sacred city, presided over by the priests of Kush. All pharaohs, except the Hyksos and the Greeks, who were not true pharaohs because they were not pharaohs of the tradition of Adam's calendar, of Napata, of the Pyramid of Giza, and all the other pyramids that were built in honor of the gods. All of African history, all of Alkebulan history, all of human history, all of world history leads back to Napata, the holy sacred place of the Kushites and the Egyptians. All of history. Let's reflect briefly on what that means. At Adam's calendar, we see and learn how the Kushites invented physics, mathematics, and chemistry, and use these mathematical formulas to track and study the Orion constellation. In the Orion constellation, that's where they're declared 3 of their main gods. They call the Sirius star a god, also Osiris and Isis, relating to the Orion constellation. The Orion constellation is over 1,300 light years away from Earth. They're over 6 million miles in 1 light year. And they were able to align the Adam calendar, megalith and monolith with the stars in the Orion system and track the weather systems over Africa. The early Kushites, also in southern Africa, they were able to select stones to build their megalith. Stones like dolomites and hornfels that have certain crystalline components with calcium and sodium and other minerals that could harness the energy from the core of the earth. And somehow, it seems, they were able to also harness the ultraviolet rays from the sun to those stones and created electromagnetism. As to the free energy that they were harnessing there, we have no idea what they were doing with it. Their discoveries in physics, in mathematics, calculus, algebra, their discoveries in chemistry leading to their engineering feats at Adam's calendar, and of course, their extraordinary discovery in astronomy. They brought that knowledge to Napata. So they brought it from southern Africa to North Africa. And at Napata, they repeated exactly what happened at Adam's calendar. Adam's calendar circle was built over 75,000 years ago. Napata was built over 10,000 years ago. Massive difference in terms of years. Same knowledge. Studying the same star systems, including the Ursa Majoris and the Canis Major constellations, and other constellations as well. The knowledge of Napata was also brought to Giza. They used that knowledge to build the pyramids at Giza.